Welcome to Celebrity Interviews with Paul. Today I have with me the Reverend Dr. Angela Zimmann, who is the interim president at United Lutheran Seminary, and she lives in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We went to seminary together. She and her husband Marty are the reason that I took my first trip to the Holy Land. She is a dear friend, and it is a joy to have you on Celebrity Interviews. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, Pastor Paul. It's good to see you. And I was going to ask you where Miss Brandy is. Where's Brandy at today?
Oh, I think she had to go see a client because she is actually, as a lactation consultant, back in home.
Oh, sure.
So she is going to see clients. And then, of course, we have to find where our children are and manage them in some way.
Yeah.
So she is doing that. And, of course, take care of George, our new puppy. And speaking of which, you have I understand, a new member of your family.
We do. We have a puppy. His name is Aster, and he belongs to my daughter. But when she goes to work, we get to babysit. He's my grand dog. And can I see him for a second? Bring him over. He can make now he's the real celebrity. He can make a celebrity appearance. Aster, do you want to say hello? Hello, Aster.
Oh, who's a good boy?
Aster's a good boy. Aster's a good boy.
Sweet little boy.
Yeah.
George looked like that for about 15 minutes.
Right? I know. And then they're big and fluffy and furry and all those things. But yeah, so
absolutely.
We have a COVID dog. He's our COVID dog.
Yeah, well, that's good. You got to do something to get through the pandemic, don't you?
Absolutely. And we're all trying to figure out ways.
Yep. Now, and you guys are living in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, right? And how is, other than Astrid, how is life in the pandemic for your family?
Our family's doing all right. My son graduated from college in May, and of course they didn't have any in-person graduation or anything like that. My daughter finished her junior year of high school. No in-person prom or anything like that. Our seminary graduation ended up being online. So things have shifted. It's different, but we're doing okay. We're grateful to God for our health and for our family. We're getting to spend some quality time together that I didn't anticipate. Both of my kids are Lutheran camp people. My son's a camp counselor. My daughter at Camp Luther in Ohio. Some of you might know that name. And my daughter is at Camp Nawakwa in Pennsylvania, working in the craft hall. And so both of those camps were canceled this summer. So normally we're empty nesters in the summer, and this year we had our kids. So they missed camp terribly, but we were blessed and grateful to have some extra time with them. So we have had more family dinners during the pandemic than I can remember. So that's been a gift. Yeah.
Now you are the interim president at United Lutheran Seminary. When's your term end?
August 1st, Bishop Guy Irwin from California is coming, and he will be our permanent president. So I have about 24 more days, I think.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we got this in under the wire.
Right.
And maybe we'll have to interview the bishop again.
Oh yeah, he'd be great. It'd be great to have him.
And I'm sure you anticipated how wonderful it'd be to be the president of a seminary during a pandemic, right?
No. Oh my goodness. It really, I started my interim service on the 1st of December. So I will have been serving for 8 months. And so December, January, February, things were moving along. In March, the second week of March, I was in Philadelphia. Actually, we always have this wonderful Preaching with Power program with some of our partners in the Black church. And we got canceled the last 2 days because the pandemic hit and couldn't finish it. So that was the end of seminary life as we knew it. And so being the president in the pandemic has been interesting. Although I can say it's been, I have a wonderful leadership team that has really worked well together. And in some ways, because with United Lutheran Seminary, we have 2 campuses, Gettysburg and Philadelphia. And there's always been sort of this just tension or struggle in a sense of how do we focus and how do we exist as a 2-campus community. And the pandemic really sort of flattened that tension because suddenly no one was on any campus. We were all online. And so we went from having 2 worship services and trying to figure out how that worked, and to suddenly we had 1 Zoom worship service where everyone had the chance to worship together. And so it really brought our community much closer. So there were blessings and benefits even in the struggles, especially at United. And because we had spent so much time doing Zoom already, being on the 2 campuses, we were very comfortable moving into that format. So
okay. Isn't it? It's interesting as I talk to people, and one of my questions I often ask is, how's life in the pandemic? How's things for your family? Things like that. It's interesting how many kind of hidden blessings people have found in the midst of everything is awful, but
absolutely.
and realizing capacities they didn't know existed, or creating connections like that. That's kind of neat. That it could kind of flatten and connect 2 disparate communities.
Right.
And I'm sure leading up to that, there's an interesting dynamic and push-pull. So now when we met, we were in seminary at Trinity,
Right.
Lutheran Seminary in Columbus, Ohio. And we're talking a couple decades ago, back in the early 90s, mid 90s. Right. And at that point, I remember people saying, well, we have 8 Lutheran seminaries. That's probably more than we need. And here we are, 25 years later, and we still, and every one of our seminaries has undergone some kind of major shift. What's the future look like for seminary education as we look across the church?
That's a really good question. My husband and I were actually talking about that this morning. Is what is it going to look like? And I think a lot of it is just going to depend on the needs of the church, what ministries are needed, and I think we will have to respond to the need as opposed to imposing what we as seminaries want. And it's going to be unfolding. I mean, I couldn't have imagined 3 months ago when the pandemic hit that we would be all online in the fall, that we would do that, we wouldn't have chosen to do that. We're an incarnational church with an incarnational faith, and we like to breathe the same air, and of course that is totally out. Now. And so the situation dictated that we move online. And I think in many ways, the church and the world will dictate what our seminaries need to look like. I don't think we will always have the luxury of choice. And that's okay, because God can work through that too. So it's impossible for me to begin to prognosticate. I think we will just have to see, and we'll have to be flexible and resilient and gritty and do what needs to be done to serve the church and the world.
Those all sound like things that I keep trying to repeat in different contexts to my own congregation in the midst of the pandemic. We're going to return to an outdoor worship on Sunday, and it'll be the first time we've had outdoor worship, but then any in-person worship since March 15th. But I also keep telling people this is what we're going to do now for now.
Right.
And I can't promise you we're going to do it again next week. Because if 2/3 of the people show up not wearing masks, which I never really expected I would encourage people to do, but if 2/3 of the people show up not wearing masks, then we're not going to have in-person worship the next week. And for all I know, the governor will come down and say you can't have gatherings of more than 20 people outside.
Right.
It's entirely possible. But so we do have to kind of figure out what we can do with the capacities we have and the resources we have.
That's exactly it. That's what seminaries are doing. Working together. I've had the chance to be in dialogue with the presidents of the other seminaries and the leaders. Some of them that are embedded, they have other names besides president. But the leaders of those seminaries, wonderful, faithful people, striving to serve the church and the world, and trying to figure out where they fit, what gifts they have been given to share, and what that calling is. So
right.
Yeah.
It is, although at the same time, seems to me in some ways the reality of seminary education now is kind of a reminder of what we do in the church sometimes. Like we let market forces dictate things instead of kind of being proactive. There was a sense 20 years ago that we had more capacity than we needed then. We may well have more capacity than we need now, and yet everybody is kind of holding on to their little niche. I'm not sure how good that is, but
I don't know.
Kind of what we do in the church.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. It's really hard to figure out. And having gone through the consolidation of two seminaries and seeing the definite blessings in it, and also the very real challenges, it's I mean, it's tough. It's tough to make these decisions and to figure out how do we move forward. What does it mean to move forward faithfully? Our students certainly need the practical experiences, but they also need strong theology and Bible and all of those pieces. And how do we do that? And how do we do that in a world? Do we expect people to move locationally? Can we do more online? I've heard all kinds of things. One of the pieces that you and I have talked about that United Lutheran is excited about is working on our Doctor of Ministry program.
Yep.
And one of my friends from Wartburg has said United Lutheran's Doctor of Ministry program that can offer funding to the students so that they don't have to pay for it is a gift to the whole church. So that may be a gift that United brings, and there may be a different gift that Trinity brings, or Luther, or Southern, and it may just be a matter of discerning what those gifts are. I'm not sure that we should all do everything. Maybe we can each do different things exceedingly well.
Well, I know like Pacific Lutheran has we have our youth worker here, Dylan Pyatt, is part of the team program. So he's in that track towards ordination that isn't a seminary degree, but is seminary studies and things like that, and a lot more distance learning, although it's Pacific Lutheran Seminary that's located in Berkeley, and he drives to Indianapolis, Indiana to take classes, and it's its own kind of weirdness and all of that, with a professor who I believe is from India.
Okay, all right.
The lead organizer of it, so we've got a little bit of everything as we hit, which kind of is the story of the church these days, I think, too.
Yeah, it is. And so we'll just have to see where things go. And I'll be stepping back from that leadership role, but watching from the advancement arena, trying to continue to raise funds to ensure the future of United Lutheran Seminary, but always in partnership with the other seminaries and the greater church.
Yeah.
So.
Well, how is, I saw Gettysburg was on the news lately.
Yes.
It looked like there was a bit of a hoax played on some of our right-wing conspiracy-minded people.
Well, there were rumors, social media, about Antifa and some of those pieces, but nothing came to pass. We did have some white supremacists show up in the park. Problem, because what happens is when those folks show up exercising their right to bear arms, then lots of families and folks who would like to come and visit the park for the day just feel a little bit intimidated and choose to stay home. So it can have a negative impact, not just socially and culturally, but economically on this place as well. So we're trying our best to.
I've yet to find a time when I'm comforted by seeing people wearing assault rifles across their chest. So
yeah, exactly.
Still working on that in my own self. So, well, so we obviously have a lot of tensions. In some ways, it feels like everything is kind of awful. In the midst of their blessings, though, and joys. Where do you find joy right now?
That's just one of those questions that I can come up with so many answers. I mean, recently my husband and I celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. So I had to say that's a huge piece of my joy. And I don't know, Marty, are you around here? Do you want to make a cameo?
Sure.
Oh, here he is.
Ooh,
you get an extra. Not only did you get Esther, you also get Marty.
Man, what a
So here's my joy.
Oh, hey, Paul.
We're doing a celebrity interview, but the celebrity was Astor. I brought him up and he went. So
yeah, absolutely. Good to see you, brother.
It's good to see you, classmates. Man, I remember when we were in seminary together, scratching away on our little slate chalkboards.
The papyrus and the stylus.
Right. The cuneiform. So
I think those were the days when Dr. Dearman would smoke his pipe in class. And
man.
And he just celebrated his 90th birthday.
It's amazing, you know. You know, there's always one that's like, I smoke a pipe every day and I wake up with whiskey and I'm fine.
Right?
And I'm doing great, you know.
And I'm
looking
doing great.
forward to that life.
Yeah.
Peace,
There
brother.
you go.
Take care.
Blessings. Blessings.
What about you, Paul? What's bringing you joy these days?
I still love riding my bike and getting outside and moving. I enjoy that. The family dinners are great. And Crazy George. And you know, the other thing is I have some wonderful parishioners around me that are encouraging and hopeful and are supportive of our slowness of what we're doing. And it's very comforting to know that I don't have to deal with a barrage of people that, you know, want to open immediately and are, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
that's been a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things I miss the most is serving in a parish. I mean, I went to seminary to be a parish pastor, and I loved serving in the parish in Southeast Michigan for many years. And I really miss parish ministry. So knowing that community and the love that you have for the people that you serve and who serve alongside you, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to actually see their faces. It was fun. We had a collection of like toiletries for the local food pantry, and it was just fun seeing people kind of come through. And it's it'll be fun Sunday to see faces. And I think it'll be good for us. It's time. So.
Well, you all will be in my prayers as you reopen in your space, in your parking lot, and I hope it goes beautifully and you stay safe and everyone as well.
Absolutely. Well, you are in my prayers as well, and thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Rev Dr Angela Zimmann, Interim President, for a couple more days.
Yep. And thanks. Take care.